The desperate deal. The eviction notice trembled in Jade Rivera's hands as she read it for the 10th time, hoping the words would somehow change. 30 days. That's all she had left before she and 6-year-old Mia would be on the streets. The rain pelted against their apartment windows, each drop echoing the desperation, clawing at her chest. "Mama, why are you crying?" Mia's small voice cut through the storm of Jade's thoughts. Her daughter stood in the doorway, clutching her worn teddy bear, the purple shadows under her eyes, a constant reminder of the rare blood disorder that consumed their savings like wildfire. "Just tired, baby," Jade whispered, quickly wiping her. Tears. She couldn't let Mia see how close they were to losing everything. The medical bills from Children's Hospital created a mountain of debt that her part-time graphic design work could never conquer. Her laptop screen glowed with another rejection email when her phone buzzed with a job alert. Personal assistant. To CEO, Sterling Tech Industries, immediate start. Compensation $75,000 per month. The salary made her gasp. It was enough to save everything, but something felt wrong about the posting. No company details, just a phone number floating in digital space like a lifeline thrown from darkness. Before rational thought could stop her, Jade dialed the number. It rang once. "Miss Rivera." The voice was sharp, commanding, belonging to someone who expected immediate obedience. "I represent Mr. Oliver Sterling. Are you available for an interview tomorrow at 9 a.m.? "Sterling Tower, executive level. How do you know my name?" Jade's heart hammered. "Be punctual, come alone." The line went dead. That night, Jade held Mia as her daughter's fever spiked again. The medication they needed cost more than rent, and their insurance had reached its limit. As dawn broke over the city, Jade made her choice. Whatever Oliver Sterling wanted, she would give it to him, if it meant saving her daughter. Sterling Tower pierced the sky like a steel and glass monument to power. In the elevator, Jade smoothed her only business suit, bought second-hand 3 years ago. The executive floor smelled of expensive leather and fresh orchids, a world away from their cramped apartment. Oliver Sterling stood with his back to her when she entered his office, hands clasped behind him as he gazed out at the city. Below, when he turned, Jade's breath caught. He was devastatingly handsome in a way that felt dangerous. Sharp cheekbones, storm-grey eyes, and an aura of controlled power that made the air crackle with tension. Jade Rivera, 28, single mother, facing eviction due to medical debt. He recited her life like reading a stock report. Graphic design degree, no relevant experience for this position. Heat flooded her cheeks. "How do you—" "I know everything about people I consider employing." He moved closer, studying her with the intensity of a predator evaluating prey. "The question is whether you're desperate enough to accept what I'm offering. What kind of position requires investigating my personal life?" Oliver's smile was razor-sharp. "The kind that comes with absolute discretion requirements. You'll manage my schedule, travel with me, handle confidential matters, but there are conditions you may find uncomfortable." Ice formed in her stomach. "What conditions?" "Complete availability. You and your daughter will live on my estate. Full security clearance, including medical examination." His voice carried the weight of non-negotiation, and an ironclad non-disclosure agreement. Violation results in immediate termination and legal consequences that would destroy your future. The room spun. This wasn't just a job offer. It was a gilded cage. But thinking of Mia's pale face, of the mounting bills, of their uncertain future, Jade found herself nodding. "When would I start?" "Immediately. My car is waiting downstairs." Oliver returned to his desk, dismissing her with brutal efficiency. "Welcome to my employment, Miss Rivera. I hope you don't regret this decision." As Jade left his office, she couldn't shake the feeling she'd just signed her soul away. But for Mia's future, she would have made a deal with the devil himself. Part 2. Secrets in the shadows, the Sterling estate sprawled across 50 acres of manicured perfection, hidden behind iron gates and surveillance cameras. Jade clutched Mia's hand as they walked through corridors lined with artwork worth more than most people's homes. Their new living quarters were larger than any place they'd ever lived, but the luxury felt like beautiful chains binding them to Oliver's world. Vincent Hayes, Oliver's assistant, was a man in his 50s, with kind eyes that seemed to hold secrets. He showed them around with practiced efficiency, his British accent lending warmth to his explanations of house rules and security protocols. "Mr. Sterling values privacy above all else," Vincent said, as they paused before a set of carved double doors. "The West Wing is strictly off-limits to staff, and Mia," he smiled down at her daughter, "you have a playroom upstairs with everything a little girl could want." Dr. Catherine Wells arrived that evening to examine Mia. Unlike their previous doctors, she was gentle and thorough, her examination revealing more about Mia's condition in 1 hour than months of previous appointments. "The specialists I'm recommending are the best in the country," Dr. Wells told Jade privately. "Mr. Sterling has already arranged appointments. Treatment will begin next week." That night, Jade tucked Mia into a bed fit for a princess, surrounded by toys they never could have afforded. Her daughter's eyes were brighter than they'd been in months, and for the first time in years, Jade felt a flicker of hope. The feeling shattered the next morning when she discovered Oliver in his study, poring over financial documents spread across his desk like battle plans. "Your brother Marcus has been embezzling from my company," he said without preamble, not looking up from the papers. $2 million over 18 months. Funneled through shell companies he thought I wouldn't trace. Jade's legs gave out, and she collapsed into the leather chair across from his desk. "That's impossible. Marcus wouldn't he?" Oliver's grey eyes were merciless. "The same brother who abandoned you when Mia got sick, who refused to help with medical bills because it might impact his lifestyle." The accusations hit like physical blows because they were true. Marcus had disappeared from their lives when Mia's illness became expensive and inconvenient. "What do you want from me?" Jade whispered. Oliver leaned back, studying her with predatory focus. "I want you to wear a wire. Meet with Marcus. Get him to confess. One conversation and this goes away quietly. And if I refuse, then I handle it my way. Federal prosecutors, media attention, a trial that destroys what's left of his reputation." Oliver's voice was silk over steel. "But I'm curious where your loyalty lies, Jade. With the brother who abandoned you, or with the man who's saving your daughter's life?" The manipulation was subtle but devastating. Oliver wasn't just her employer. He was positioning himself as Mia's savior, the answer to all their prayers. And now he was asking her to choose sides in a war she'd never known was being fought. "I need time to think. You have until tomorrow." Oliver returned to his documents, but as she reached the door, he spoke again. "For what it's worth, I take no pleasure in this, but Marcus made his choice when he decided to steal from me." That evening, Jade found herself in the estate's garden, watching Mia play on swings that probably cost more than their old car. Vincent appeared beside her, offering a cup of tea. "He's not as heartless as he pretends," Vincent said quietly. "I've worked for Oliver for 15 years. I've seen him destroy enemies without blinking, but I've also seen him anonymously fund children's hospitals and scholarship programs." "Then why is he doing this to Marcus?" Vincent's expression grew somber. "Because betrayal is the one thing Oliver Sterling never forgives. His father taught him that trust is weakness, that people will always disappoint you if given the chance." As stars appeared in the darkening sky, Jade made her decision. Marcus had made his choices, and she would make hers. But she couldn't shake the feeling that Oliver Sterling was just as dangerous to her heart as he was to her brother's future. Dangerous attractions. The restaurant Marcus had chosen was a modest Italian place downtown, far from the world of sterling and silk Jade had grown accustomed to. She arrived early, the wire device Oliver had given her feeling like a weight against her chest. Her hands trembled as she ordered water, the magnitude of what she was about to do crushing down on her. Marcus looked older when he walked in, stress lines etched deep around his eyes. His expensive suit couldn't hide the haunted look of the man living on borrowed time. "Jade, thank God you agreed to meet." He slid into the booth across from her, his voice shaking. "I heard about Mia's treatment. I should have been there, should have helped." "Yes, you should have." Her response was cold, professional. This wasn't a family reunion, it was a business transaction. "I know I've been a terrible brother, but I want to make it right." Marcus leaned forward desperately. "I have money now, enough to take care of you and Mia forever." "What kind of money, Marcus?" His eyes darted around the restaurant. "I've been moving funds for some investors. Private. Transfers, very lucrative work." He pulled out his phone, showing her bank statements with numbers that made her gasp. $2 million, Jade. It's enough for us to disappear, start over somewhere safe." The confession spilled out exactly as Oliver had predicted. Marcus detailed the shell companies, the forged authorizations, the careful planning that had allowed him to steal from Sterling Industries over 18 months. With each word, the wire captured evidence that would destroy him. But then, Marcus grabbed her wrist. Across the table, his grip desperate and painful. "Jade, you have to get away from Oliver Sterling. Whatever he's paying you, whatever he's promised, it's not worth it." "You're scaring me." "Good. You should be scared." Marcus glanced around frantically. "Sterling isn't just some tech billionaire. I did research after I realized he was onto me. The man has connections to arms dealers, money launderers, people who make problems disappear permanently." Ice flooded Jade's veins. "That's impossible." "Is it? Think about how you got that job. A single mother with no connections, no experience, and suddenly Oliver Sterling wants to hire you, give you more money than you've ever dreamed of." Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's because you're my sister. He's using you to control me." Before Jade could respond, Marcus stood abruptly and walked toward the rear exit. "I'm sorry, baby sister. I'm so sorry I got you mixed up in this." The drive back to the estate passed, in a blur of neon lights and dark thoughts. Every interaction with Oliver flashed through her mind in a new light. The job posting that appeared at her moment of greatest need. The investigation into her background that had been too thorough for simple employment. The way he'd known about Mia's condition, Marcus's abandonment, every detail of their lives. She found Oliver waiting in his study, satisfaction written across his sharp features as he listened to the recording. "Perfect," he said as she entered. "Marcus Rivera just confessed to embezzling $2 million from Sterling Industries. He also said some interesting things about you." Jade stepped closer, studying his face for any crack in his perfect composure. "About your connections to dangerous people, about you using me to control him." Oliver's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air between them. He set down his whiskey glass and smiled, the expression cold as winter moonlight. "Marcus Rivera is a desperate man, caught in a trap of his own making. Desperate men say desperate things." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're going to get." Oliver moved to his desk and pulled out a manila folder. "Your brother has 48 hours to return the money and disappear. After that, I turn this recording over to federal prosecutors." "And me? What happens to Mia and me?" For the first time since she'd met him, Oliver's mask slipped. Something vulnerable and raw flashed across his features before the walls slammed back into place. "You're free to go whenever you choose, Jade, but your daughter's treatment here is the best in the world. Are you really willing to sacrifice her future for a man who abandoned you both?" The question hung between them like a blade. As Jade looked into Oliver's storm-grey eyes, she realized the most dangerous thing about Oliver Sterling wasn't his wealth or his connections or his ruthless business practices. It was the way he was making her fall in love with him, even as she discovered just how dangerous that love might be. Part 4. Betrayal and Truth. 3 weeks passed in a strange suspension of reality. Marcus had disappeared. The stolen money mysteriously returned to Sterling Industries' accounts, and life at the estate settled into a routine that almost felt normal. Almost, except for the electricity that crackled between Jade and Oliver every time they were in the same room. Dr. Wells reported that Mia's condition was improving dramatically. The experimental treatment Oliver had arranged was working better than anyone had hoped. Jade watched her daughter play in the garden, her cheeks pink with health for the first time in years. "She's beautiful," Oliver said, appearing beside her at the window. He'd been different lately, softer somehow, as if Mia's laughter was melting the ice around his heart. "Thank you," Jade whispered, "for everything. I know you didn't have to." "Yes, I did." His voice was rough with emotion he rarely let show. "I couldn't watch her suffer when I had the power to help." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the careful walls they'd both built crumbled. Oliver's hand reached up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with infinite tenderness. "Jade, The study door burst open, shattering the moment. A woman in her 30s swept in, her designer dress and predatory smile screaming. "Wealth and entitlement. Hello, darling," she purred, moving to Oliver like she owned him. "Did you miss me?" Oliver's expression went arctic. "Elena, I thought I made it clear our engagement was over." Elena Cross. Jade recognized her now from society pages and business magazines. Oliver's ex-fiancée, heiress to a shipping fortune, and apparently not someone who accepted rejection gracefully. "Oh, that silly little fight." Elena waved dismissively. "Daddy says you've both cooled off enough. The merger between Cross Shipping and Sterling Industries will proceed as planned." "There is no merger," Oliver said coldly, "and there never will be." Elena's gaze shifted to Jade, and her smile turned venomous. "I see you've been playing with the help. How pedestrian of you." Heat flooded Jade's cheeks, but before she could respond, Oliver stepped protectively in front of her. "Get out, Elena! Now!" "I don't think so." Elena's voice turned silky with threat. "Not when I have such interesting photos of your little charity case." She pulled out her phone, showing pictures of Jade and Mia entering the estate, at the hospital, in the garden. The media would find it fascinating that Oliver Sterling is keeping his assistant and her sick child like pets. "You're threatening her." Oliver's voice was deadly quiet. "I'm protecting what's mine." Eleanor moved closer, her hand trailing possessively down Oliver's arm. "We both know you can't afford a scandal right now, not with the federal investigation. Into your overseas accounts." Jade's blood turned to ice. Federal investigation? What was Elena talking about? Oliver saw her expression and stepped away from both women. "Elena, you have 30 seconds to leave before I have security escort you." "Out." "Fine. But this isn't over, darling. It never is with us." Elena headed for the door, pausing to smile at Jade. "Enjoy your fairy tale while it lasts. But remember, Cinderella always loses the prince in the end." After Elena left, silence stretched between them like a chasm. Jade stared at Oliver, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. "Federal investigation?" she asked quietly. Oliver's jaw clenched. "It's nothing. Business competitors trying to find leverage." "Is it true? About the overseas accounts?" "Jade, is it true?" Her voice cracked with betrayal. Oliver turned to the window, his shoulders rigid. "My father taught me that survival requires preparation. Money in accounts that can't be touched. Allies who owe favors. Information that can destroy enemies before they destroy you." "You mean illegal accounts? Money laundering?" Everything Marcus accused you of. I've never broken any laws, Oliver said, but his tone lacked conviction. I've just bent them to my advantage. The fairy tale was crumbling around her, revealing the ugly truth beneath. Oliver Sterling wasn't her knight in shining armor. He was exactly what Marcus had warned her about. A dangerous man who collected people like chess pieces and moved them around his board without regard for the damage he caused. I need to take Mia and leave, she said, backing toward the door. Oliver spun around, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw real fear in his eyes. Jade, wait. Let me explain. Explain what? How you investigated my family, manipulated our circumstances, used my brother's crime to trap me here. Tears streamed down her face. How you made me fall in love with you as part of your game. The confession hung between them like a loaded gun. Oliver's face went white, and Jade realized she'd just revealed the one truth she'd been trying to hide from herself. She was in love with Oliver Sterling, and that love might just destroy them both. Love conquers all. The safe house. Oliver arranged was a modest cottage an hour outside the city, far from the luxury of his estate, but warm and welcoming in ways his mansion had never been. Jade spent 3 days there with Mia, watching her daughter play in the small garden while wrestling with the choice that would define their future. Vincent arrived on the 4th morning, his usually composed demeanor cracking with exhaustion. He's been destroying himself looking for you, Vincent said without preamble. Oliver's called off every meeting, cancelled every appointment. He's done nothing but work with his legal team to ensure your safety. My safety. Elena Cross wasn't bluffing about the federal investigation. She's been feeding information to prosecutors for months, trying to force Oliver into marriage. Vincent's voice was grim. But Oliver's fighting back. He's turning over all his overseas accounts, cooperating fully with investigators. He's destroying his father's empire to protect you and Mia. Jade sank into the cottage's worn armchair. I don't understand. Oliver's father built Sterling Industries on a foundation of moral compromises. Oliver inherited that legacy, but meeting you changed him. Vincent's eyes softened. For the first time in his life, he found something more important than power, someone worth losing everything for. That afternoon, Jade made her decision. She drove back to Sterling Tower, leaving Mia safely with Dr. Wells at the cottage. The building was swarming with federal agents, and she had to show identification 3 times before reaching Oliver's office. She found him at his desk, surrounded by legal documents and looking like he hadn't slept in days. When he saw her, his carefully composed mask shattered completely. Jade. Her name was a prayer on his lips. Thank God you're safe. Vincent told me what you're doing, about the accounts, the cooperation with investigators. Oliver stood slowly, as if afraid. Sudden movement might make her disappear again. I won't let Elena or anyone else hurt you and Mia, even if it costs me everything. Why? She asked, stepping closer. Why would you sacrifice your empire for us? Because I love you. The confession broke from him like a dam bursting. I love your strength, your courage, the way you fought for your daughter without ever asking for pity. I love how you've made me want to be better than my father ever was. Jade reached up to touch his face, seeing the vulnerability he'd hidden beneath layers of power and control. I love you too. That's what terrifies me. It terrifies me too. Oliver's arms came around her, holding her like she was the most precious thing in his world. I've spent my whole life believing love was weakness, but loving you makes me stronger than I've ever been. 6 months later, Jade stood in the small community center they'd opened together, watching Oliver read to a group of children whose families were facing medical crises. The federal investigation had cleared him of all charges, but the process had stripped away most of his father's ill-gotten gains. They'd kept enough to ensure Mia's continued treatment and to fund their new venture, a foundation that provided emergency assistance to families in crisis. It was honest work, meaningful work, and Oliver had thrown himself into it with the same intensity he'd once reserved for corporate conquests. "Mama, look!" Mia ran up to them, her face glowing with health and happiness. In her hand was a drawing. She'd made a family of 3 stick figures standing in front of a small house surrounded by hearts. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Jade said, kneeling to hug her daughter. "It's us in our new house," Mia announced proudly, "with Daddy Oliver." Oliver's eyes met Jade's over their daughter's head, and she saw everything she needed to know in his expression: love, devotion, and a promise of forever that had nothing to do with money or power and everything to do with the family they'd created together. That evening, after Mia was asleep in her new bedroom, Oliver found Jade on their front porch swing. Their house was small compared to the estate, a 3-bedroom cottage with a white picket fence and a garden where Mia could play safely. "Any regrets?" Oliver asked, settling beside her. "About what?" "Trading a mansion for a cottage. A billionaire's lifestyle for a community worker's salary." Jade smiled, leaning against his shoulder. "The only thing I regret is how long it took me to realize that the man I fell in love with wasn't the billionaire. It was the person underneath all that armor, the one who read stories to sick children and worried about my happiness more than his own fortune." Oliver tilted her chin up, his eyes soft with wonder. "I never thought I'd find someone worth more than all the money in the world. And I never thought I'd find someone who'd give it all up just to see me smile." As they sat together in the gathering dusk, watching fireflies dance in their modest garden, Jade reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She'd started as his desperate employee, signed a contract that made her his prisoner. But in the end, it was love that had truly captured them both, and love that had set them free. Oliver Sterling had been the most dangerous man in her world. Now he was simply the man she couldn't live without, and that made all the difference.